Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Payne.
And welcome. You are tuned in to my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studios at Universal Broadcasting Network. And then every Thursday and Saturday on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel, AM 1050, FM 106.5, that's KCAA Loma Linda. And now been bumped up to iHeartRadio, so you can get me anytime splattering hope and happiness for you. So that's why there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words allowed on this show. No Kardashian talk at all. I think I'm going to add no T-words, no Trump talk at all on this show, because it is... I'm really, really wanting you to be more consumed in your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And as I've been doing lately, excellent customer service shout out instead of complaining about things, because I do run the 21-day fast from complaining. My great experiences this week are Gordon at Apple Care and Shatani at Shiseido counter at Nordstrom's. And because of my Asian Open giveaway, I got her to offer a free facial. So if you're local and can get to Cerritos Mall here in Southern California, go to my website, drmarissa.tv, fill in the subject line on the guest book and say beautiful, and you will be the winner of this week's Asian Oprah giveaway. And it is the last week of the month, so yes, we are doing sexual healing with Dr. Marissa, your new Asian Dr. Ruth. And younger version too. I use olive oil though. But I am so delighted to have a very, very special guest for this month's sexual healing. And that's someone who you all know and have really, really enjoyed her music. My very special guest is a great example of sexual healing and intimacy healing. She is Catherine Antoinette Toni, quote unquote, with an I, Tennille, who's best known for her 70s and 80s chart-topping hits and Grammy Award-winning Record of the Year with the pop duo Captain and Tennille. Yes, love will keep us together. Sorry. A classically trained pianist and a prolific songwriter, Toni has also released numerous solo albums celebrating the romantic music of big band and American standards. Today, Toni can be found working with her award-winning Australian Shepherd dogs in Lake Mary, Florida, and continuing to play the music that she loves. She's completed a memoir of her life and career, which we will be getting an intimate look just exclusively here with me and her today. Please welcome to the studio, Toni Tennille. Yay!
Thank you.
Oh my, it's my blessing. Thank you. I'm really glad that we could make this happen. I know that some of my other UBN hosts were very impressed that I got to have you on the show, and they've been actually promoting for me. So thank you, friend and foe, for all of the props. And I know almost all of my listeners are really anticipating this particular show because many of them remember that era, love the music, and you're actually in the same fan base of another one of my frequent guests. I don't know if you know her personally, but I think you two would get along fabulously, and that's the real Marianne from Gilligan's Island, Dawn Wells.
Oh, yes. We met recently. She's just
good.
A doll.
Isn't
I love her.
And you're both the same age, and you both look 20 years younger than you are. So and I know exactly what the secret to it. It is not plastic surgery. It is not fillers. It is a positive attitude to life. Everything that
Yeah.
I've read and heard about you is all about that. So I had to have you on. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Great. Now let's jump right in here. You fell
Okay.
in love with the keyboardist Daryl Dragon, better known as Tennille. Sorry, as the captain.
As the captain, right.
Sorry, you're Tennille. And he was touring with the Beach Boys as their keyboardist, and you were the Beach Girl. I didn't know that.
Right. Well, I actually got the job because of him. Actually, I hired him to perform, to play keyboards for a musical I had written called Mother Earth, which was an ecology-themed musical. And we were performing it up in San Francisco where it opened, and then we needed a new keyboard player for L.A. And someone had recommended that Daryl was available. The Beach Boys were taking a break from touring, and he'd been with them for about 5 or 6 years at that time. And he flew up to San Francisco and auditioned for me, and I hired him to play keyboards.
Should
and
I say
then,
anything about
we
casting
went down
couch?
into LA and
nothing
began
about
to work together.
No casting couch.
No casting. No. But we started working in clubs together, and just to make some money, because we both needed to make money at that time, and we worked in some dumps. I'll tell you what. We finally found a couple of really, really nice clubs that we ended up in. But in the meantime, the Beach Boys were getting ready to go back out on the road, and Carl Wilson, who was music director at the time, called Daryl and said, "Look, we need a keyboard player because our regular guy's going to stop and finish for a while, get his degree." And he said, "Do you know anybody?" And Daryl said, "Yeah, I got this gal. She can do it." And I have to say, I was so impressed that Carl Wilson said, "Fine, if you recommend her, she must be great." He never heard me play.
Wow.
He wasn't daunted by the fact that I was a girl, and they didn't have any girls in their band, and they were the Beach Boys.
Yes.
And the first time he heard me play was when we, got to Binghamton, New York for our first concert, and I played at Soundcheck. So
That's fabulous. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because in most of the pictures, it's Captain that you see at the piano.
Yeah, well, he played all the other keyboards. He played the synthesizers and all the other keyboards. But the Beach Boys always had an acoustic pianist. Brian Wilson always wrote at the acoustic piano, and he played piano.
Right.
So they always had an acoustic pianist, and that was what I was to do. Daryl did all the other keyboards.
So was it love at first sight, or lust at first sight, or did it grow? Were you friends? How did it start?
It's really hard to say. I'm looking back on it now because we met for the first time in 1971 in the lobby of the Marines Memorial Theater in San Francisco. And I was intrigued by him. I remember when I walked into the lobby of the theater, there he was waiting to audition. And he was dressed all in black jeans, everything was very hip looking,
Right.
But he didn't say much. I didn't really know him that well. I was intrigued by him because I sensed immediately that he was a musical genius. And I, kind of thought, well, yeah, he's a genius. He's kind of quiet. He doesn't say much. I have no idea how he feels about me.
Right.
But I first fell in love with the fact that we could make music together. And then I began to, fall in love with the man himself.
Did you ever ask him, did he have any kind of first, that smitten anything?
No, because I knew he didn't.
Oh, okay.
He had a girlfriend that was kind of well known as a groupie around there. She had been out with many different, actually rather famous people.
Okay.
But she latched on to Daryl because she thought he could, rescue her, and she would call him if she'd get out on the road with one of these groups. And she had a drinking problem and did some drugs and things too. So she would call him, Daryl told me, in tears and say, come get me and take me home. And so he would go get her and bring her back. But shortly before I met Daryl, a few weeks before, as a matter of fact, She drove up into the hills of Malibu with a quart of whiskey and a whole bunch of pills and drank it all down, and her body was discovered 3 days later.
Wow.
So it was a very tragic thing, and
Wow.
I felt that one of the reasons he was so withdrawn and quiet was maybe sorrow or something, because that's the way I would have felt, devastated about her. But he never really mentioned her other than just telling me what had happened briefly, and then that was it.
So you started working together. Did he, when you wrote that first love song that did so well for him, and I read somewhere that he didn't really pay attention to the words.
Yeah,
That's heartbreaking. I write music and I write, I can't imagine.
Well, I came from a very loving and very supportive and close family. I have 3 sisters, and we're very, very close. My parents are gone now, but they were always wonderful and supportive and loving to us. Daryl's family was completely different. His father was a very famous man of his day, Academy Award-winning film scorer, symphony conductor. He was the epitome of the maestro. Handsome, conducted all over the world, did 25 albums for Capitol Records, but he was very, very hard on his kids.
Okay.
He had 3 sons and 2 daughters, and he criticized them constantly. They could never do anything right. And Daryl's mother suffered from clinical depression from the time she was in her mid-30s until she died at age a little over 80. And so he didn't get any support from her because she just couldn't do it.
Right.
And their family, they reacted, the kids mainly, by just closing in on themselves and protecting themselves from any kind of emotion, because he was also physically abusive to them, the boys particularly.
Right.
So I understood this as I got to know Daryl and got to know the family a little bit better and met them. I understood this, but I always thought, like I'd been my whole life, I'd always done that, that I had enough sunshine and love and positive energy that I could bring him out of this shell that he was in and help him experience joy, because just making the music was the joy to me. That was the thrilling thing.
Right, and I
he was great at it, but he never, I never heard him belly laugh the entire time I was with him, all those decades. Never. He just couldn't seem to do it.
Yeah, that's tough. I had a similar situation, and I really thought that I could make this man love me and be happy. And I tried to leave 6 times. 6 times in my sentence was 9.2 years. No, I'm just kidding. A little shorter than yours. But I tried.
Well, I married Daryl in 75 and finally divorced him in 2014.
Yeah, 40 years.
It took me that long to do it.
Is that really, it took you that long, or you gave up, or I call it going to the tractor for milk. You finally realize that tractor ain't going to give milk? And
Well, I am a very positive, loyal, and stubborn woman, and I was convinced if I just kept trying that I would, open that door just a crack and maybe the sunshine would come through for him. I was, very much in love with him. Probably a lot of it was his brilliant musicianship, which I thought was amazing. I was kind of in awe of him. But, eventually I realized, and it took many, many years, that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, okay, you made this vow, you married him, you vowed to stick with him through the end. And so I had thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. But eventually I found that his, and none of this, I don't blame him for any of this. He's just the way he is. But he's an extremely negative person who tends to drag people down who are positive. You just can't be around him very long before you start being dragged into that same hole. Yeah. And as I got older, when I got into my 70s, my late 60s and 70s, I thought, is this the way I'm going to end up? A bitter old lady? I don't want to do that.
Right. Right.
And so I finally made the decision after we moved to Prescott, which was in about Prescott, Arizona, about 2007, I think it was, that we moved there.
Was he surprised? Was he surprised when you?
He feigned surprise.
Okay.
I think he knew. He knew I wasn't happy, but I was doing everything he wanted me to do.
Right.
You know, fixing his food with all of his different rules and all that sort of stuff, and you know, kind of being the social person. You know, he didn't like to be around a lot of people, and he just didn't. That wasn't his thing. And,
Right. Right. And if
so
you're wondering,
I did it for a long time.
yeah. Yeah, if you're wondering who I'm talking to and you sort of recognize the voice, even though she's not singing, I am talking to the absolutely talented and spectacular Toni Tennille, the better half, literally, of the Captain and Tennille on today. No, I'm sorry. You know, and I have to, hats off and kudos to you, because throughout this whole thing with the memoir and talking to Harlan and asking him, you know, how, and that's your publicist, for those who don't know.
He's a wonderful man.
Yeah,
Love him.
And he talked to the captain. He talked to Daryl, and Daryl is very much, you know, this, whatever she says, that's what happened. You don't need two sides of the story. Right. She's, you know, and that's why I really wanted to have you on, and that's why this is not a sexual healing. I'm going to bash the captain. I'm doing more of that than you are, but only because I think I am, you know, projecting my own husband and how similar he sounded to Daryl. Like he was the Eeyore or the
Eeyore,
peanut.
that's it, Eeyore.
The peanut character. My father, when he met my husband, said, you know, it's like he has that rain cloud over his head.
Yeah.
And it's like, but here's my side of the street is, I had a therapist ask me once, so when did you realize he was emotionally unavailable? And I said, well, she said, before or after you married him? I said, well, way before. And she goes, so who's really emotionally unavailable? And I'm like, oh crap. So for, in my case, I picked someone who it was somewhat safe to be with, because I was damaged. You know, I had a damaged upbringing. Doesn't sound like that's what, you know, yours was just trying to save, infuse, shift, share the joy.
Right.
And I know I tried to do that too, but I think mine also had a whole other component that I had to try. I was trying to heal myself. And
I see.
And my healing was my sexual and intimate healing, because that was missing in our relationship too, was because I was comfortable with that feeling of trying to get something that I didn't think I would deserve. That I didn't deserve. And I grew up with that. So yours is another, and the reason why I'm being very specific about this is I have many listeners. I do life balance coaching, and many women and many couples who come and are, you know, just struggling so hard to try to make the other person happy, and yet asking the other person to be someone that they're not. And so and your story is very important for sexual healing, because if you are in that relationship and you keep trying, and you begin to feel like you are losing who you are in trying to be someone that you're not, then it's time to leave.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, no, let me tell you, I've grown up my whole life knowing that I was pretty special, because my parents kept telling me, and you know, and I kind of knew I was. Yeah. I never had any doubts that, you know, that I was worthy. Right. And I don't know, maybe that's just Miss Pollyanna. I don't know, but I always felt, my parents always said, hey, you can go and do and be what you want to do. We're proud of you. We think you're terrific. And not just to me, but my three sisters, who are all very accomplished women. And, you know, we just kind of had that support that we needed. And I thought I had enough of it that I could give to him and slowly bring him out. One of the songs that I wrote for him was called Circles, and it's a favorite of a lot of our fans. But it's from a poem by a poet named Edwin Markham, very short, and I'll say it for you right now.
Please. You can sing it.
My mantra.
You can sing it.
Well, no, it's better. I'm going to sing I'm going to say the poem that it came from.
All right.
It's called Outwitted, and it says, "He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in." And I was convinced I was going to do that. I was convinced from the very beginning. And I was wrong. But you know what? You and I had the same thing. The cardinal rule of getting married or hooking up into a long relationship is you can't change somebody. You're not going to change somebody. They are just who they are. And if you think you can, you're wrong. And it was my hubris that thought I could do it, and I couldn't.
Yeah. Well, I know that I don't believe in mistakes. I believe in mistakes, and I believe that every relationship you're in, you're either going to be with them for a long, long time, and or you're going to learn something really important about yourself in relationships. And I do know from hearing what he has said on and off the in media and in private from hearsay. I know that his life was enhanced because of you. I know
and
that.
listen, mine too, because I don't regret one single minute of my life so far. With all the things that were difficult and the things that were tough, and the times I would cry sometimes because I couldn't get things happening the way I wanted them to. You are the sum of every experience you've ever had.
That's right.
Good and bad, and it makes you. For me, it makes me the woman I am today. And I'm pretty happy with the woman I am today.
Yes.
It hasn't made me cynical or anything like that. It's just, okay, that's the way things are. And I don't know. And I still love him. I got to tell you, he's the only man I ever loved. In all the time that we were together, all those years, I never once cheated on him, ever. And not that I didn't have people interested,
I'm sure.
But I never met a man who could measure up to Daryl in my mind. I just couldn't. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to keep that part of my vow, and I did.
Yeah. And now you don't have to. I mean,
no, but now I don't care anymore. Are you kidding? At my age,
no,
I'm perfectly happy with my sisters and my family and all that stuff.
I hear that. And the name of my show is Take My Advice. I'm not using it. So I will say that you are primed for a beautiful relationship with someone that you respect absolutely, who adores you and listens to the words that you write and absolutely finds so much joy in your joy. And I see that for you. You still have at least 20 years on you. Boy,
I hope so, honey.
At least.
I'm great. I feel good. I feel really strong, and I can't believe how old I am. I'm always going, how could it possibly
be?
I can't be that old.
Exactly. So the next time Don invites me to play poker, you're coming too. and then we're gonna go out. We're gonna do a dating game. I'm gonna start collecting resumes or something, because really, truly, I mean, there is. I just feel it. I think there's someone coming who is going to do that with you. I really do feel that.
Dear.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I'm not looking, period.
Well, that's usually when it'll happen.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know if it ever does.
And then you're going to have to buy me dinner or something and say, you're right. You were right.
That sounds like a deal. I'll go for that.
Great. Because you really, really are truly, I can feel it in your energy, and I read it in your pages. Your memoir is beautiful. Your memoir is absolutely, I love when people can share their lives in a way that captures the pain without blame. And that's what you do.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is that's a role model for all of us who it's so easy to go through a relationship, something that was so beautiful at one point, and then completely drag it through the trash and the mud and
Yeah.
forget every reason why you got there in the first place.
Right.
And again, take my advice, I'm not using it. Although I have done a pretty good job forgiving. I see my marriage as just a chapter in my book of romance. Every
Yeah.
relationship I've had is a chapter in my book of romance. So you had a very long chapter
I did.
with Daryl, and it had some beautiful, I mean, look at the music you put. How many albums did you put out together?
Oh my God! I don't even remember, but I'll tell you what the joy was. And the one thing I always knew about Daryl, he could never express the love for me that I had wanted, I'd hoped. But I did know that he thought I was a great singer and a really great songwriter. I knew that if, when I would write a new song and I'd play it for him and he'd say, okay, he'd go right in the studio and start working on it and make this wonderful record out of it. He was a terrific producer.
Right.
And when I'd hear it, I would go, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I heard when I was writing it. And it was just, it was that part was, and being in the studio and making the record was just the greatest joy in the world. So if I couldn't have love, I had the music, the joy of music, which has always been, the most important thing in my life, I would say, is music.
Yeah. Well, you definitely use your gift. You have such a gift, and the love that's expressed, even though we didn't know it was unrequited. Didn't know, had no idea. I mean, you would say, when I told people that you were coming on the show, they're like, oh, the first was, I love their music. And then I said, yes, just Tennille's coming on. What? And then because they hadn't heard the news. And I said, yeah, because this is an important show and message for my listeners who really don't know how to extricate. They've been in a relationship that is not 80% good, but they stay. And so you also provide that hope. It's never too late. It's never too late.
Well, let me tell you, I have, after living through all this and thinking back on it now from my Everest of years, I can say that I got a lot of help. It took me, I would say, the 8 years we lived in Prescott, Arizona, to come up with the decision. But I didn't make it on my own. I had a lot of support from my sisters who always knew what was going on, from very dear, close friends that I've made over the years that I knew I could trust. I called them my council of wise women. And we even let a couple of guys in there that are pretty wise too. And then also a wonderful therapist that I found in Prescott, who I was going to her for months, working up to this decision. One of the things that made me hesitate for so long was my guilt at, people finding out that the marriage that they thought was perfect, the love they thought was perfect, wasn't. And I finally, I've been talking to my therapist, Gudrun Miller, and she said, Toni, she said, you know what you want to do. You know what you think you should do. Why are you not doing it? And I said, well, because I'm worried about what our fans would think about when they hear the news. And she looked me right in the eye and she said, Toni, this is not their life. It's
Correct.
your life. And they will go on with their lives no matter what you do. But you have a right to happiness,
Exactly.
and that's the decision you make. And I did.
I second, third, fourth that. Absolutely. You're too beautiful of a person not to have all the joy that you can have for the rest of your life and not have to have a job at home. And your music, trust me, I know. you have no idea. Well, actually, you do. Actually, you're probably one of the only people that knows exactly what I went through.
Well, now, wait a second. Let me tell you, since the book has been out and people have written to me that have read it, I was just shocked at how many people wrote and said to me, "Oh my God, you just told the story of my life."
And
That's exactly what I've been going through.
exactly.
And then you find, I've just people all over the place writing about this stuff to me, and very personal things about their lives.
Yeah.
And it made me understand that I was not alone in my feelings.
Absolutely
there are
not.
a lot of people going through this, and when you're in
Absolutely
it, you don't think there's anybody else, but there are other
And
people.
I'm so glad that you, one of my past guests, wrote the book, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. So
I love
you
that
did
title.
that for you, and I'm very grateful. We're going to have to take a sponsor break for just a minute or two. So we'll be back with Toni Tennille. From the Captain and Tennille, beautiful music. And so thank you to the sponsors who make the show possible. We'll be back in 2 and 2. Peace in and peace out. Headaches, hay fever, arthritis, acne, heartburn? Ready for relief without unwanted side effects? Then Longevity Pure Medicine has a natural homeopathic remedy for you. And be energized, a 0-calorie caffeine alternative, and be light. To increase digestion and decrease appetite, Longevity products promote better health. Get your 10% discount today at longevitypuremedicine.com with my Asian Oprah, all one word, personal coupon code. That's longevitypuremedicine.com. Headaches?
Mark, why the jingle bells? Christmas is 5 to 6 months away.
Oh, but not for the children of Loma Linda University Children's Hospital. They're having Christmas in July. Brought to you by the Sons of the American Legion Squadron 155 and proudly sponsored by KCAA. See, some of these kids are undergoing treatment, and they've been bedridden for weeks. Many are terminally ill. The goal is to get everyone involved to help bring smiles and hope to the children at Loma Linda Children's Hospital.
Wow, sounds awesome. How can I help?
It is awesome. And you can call 909-227-4849 to find out how to join in the fun and in the giving. 909-227-4849. That's 909-227-4849. It's the 9th annual Christmas in July motorcycle run and car show, Sunday, July 17th from 9 to noon. Brought to you by the Sons of the American Legion Squadron 155 and proudly sponsored by KCAA.
Welcome back. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon at Universal Broadcasting Network, broadcasting out of the Sunset Garage Studios in Hollywood, California, and every Thursday at 7 and Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and now on iHeartRadio. And we are doing Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa, this special series that started because I had heard so many alarming statistics about women who were faking orgasms, who were not happy with their love life, who were not happy with the way they felt about their own bodies, were not happy with their relationships, but felt stuck and could not move forward. And so I'm so grateful to have Toni Tennille from Captain and Tennille, the music that you absolutely love, telling her heart story about how she stayed in a loveless and intimacy-less relationship for 39 years until finally realizing that she deserved and could have her own joy and not have to continue to try to bring someone else into the sunshine. And that beautiful poem, by the way, with the circles, I'm going to have to use that somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Edwin Markham is the poet.
That's beautiful. Now,
Edwin Markham.
I do want to go back because your career was just incredible. You got to sing with Pink Floyd, Art Garfunkel, and Elton John. Mm-hmm. Don't let the sun. Can you tell I'm a
Go
singer?
down on me.
There we go.
Yeah,
I had to get you to sing. It
I
worked.
can hear my voice in there. Normally when you're a background singer, you're supposed to blend as well as you can with the other singers, but I can hear myself in there.
Now, I did have a listener stop me or message me and ask me, was there something going on with you and Elton? I said, I don't know if I'll ask her that. I'll see how the interview's going, and if I think I can fly that by her, I will.
No, not
okay.
really. Not at
think
all.
so.
In fact, the most time I spent with Elton was when Natalie Cole and he and I hosted the American Music Awards in, I think it was 1980, 1981
Beautiful,
together.
beautiful.
And he kept me and Natalie in stitches the entire time. He was one of the funniest guys I ever knew. No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
No.
There would have been a lot of, you want to talk about a lot of work.
Yeah.
Even
I
more
think
than
he's happy where he is
I
right
think
now.
so too. And then let's see, you had a successful variety show that only ran for a season. I think ABC was trying to capitalize on Sonny and Cher's popularity, and it was great for a year. I heard a lot of people actually mention that I didn't even know about. But unfortunately, that rain cloud, what is it, the Eeyore syndrome, didn't want to do that, huh?
Well, Daryl didn't want to stay with it. I mean, he tried to quit halfway through our first season because he just was not comfortable in front of audiences.
Right.
He always liked to be in the background, even before he met me. When he was working with, his brothers in a trio that they had when they were, teenagers and so forth, and other musicians that he knew in the Malibu and the Southern California area, just to make some money in clubs. He always wanted to be in the background. And he would have, and when he met me, he thought, boy, this is great. She can talk
Front
to
me.
the audience, and I can
Yes.
stay back here and just
Right.
play the keyboards.
Right.
So when he found himself on television, and it was the Captain and Tennille show, and he had to stand right up next to me and be a star, he was really uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Even
his
when
pictures.
he had to do the silly skits that they always wanted you to do in variety shows, he was not comfortable learning lines, or he was a funny guy on his own with this very, very dry sense of humor, but he couldn't just do standard comedy. It was just too hard for him.
Yeah, that's too
So
bad.
he felt miserable through that whole thing, and we
Yeah.
actually flew to New York to talk to the head guy at ABC and say that we wanted out because Daryl said, I won't do it anymore. And he said, well, no, it's successful.
the
You need
year,
to keep
yeah,
going.
yeah.
And he said, what if I give you a new producer? And he suggested Dick Clark, and we immediately went with that because Dick was a music guy,
Right.
and we knew he would understand that was where our strengths lay. And Dick finished the series for us. He was
Great.
terrific.
Great. And yeah, even in his pictures, it's rare. I thought I saw like a tiny fraction of a smile on one of the album covers, but that must have been.
If you see one of the pictures of him with B.B. King, the great blues guitarist and singer, he smiles a little bit because he just thought B.B. King was the greatest. And then the other time I saw kind of a smile on his face was when Fats Domino was our guest on our special that was is set in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
those were a couple of things that you kind of got a little smile out of him.
Yeah. That's I don't know. For us, I can tell we're both sort of made out of that same Pollyanna cloth. It's difficult to understand how people could be happy like that, but I guess people are where they are because it's comfortable, and there's a certain amount of happiness that comes from that.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what happened with Daryl. He was not comfortable in the position he found himself in.
Right.
And then when he finally said at the end of the season, I'm not doing this anymore, and we agreed to do 3 specials, like one a year after that for ABC.
Okay.
He could sort of deal with that.
Right.
But I think he felt comfortable not having to get out there and do the close-up television situation.
Right.
That was hard on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're right about that. He went into his comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you didn't have children, correct?
No children.
No children. You had.
That was
he
a
didn't-
deliberate choice for 2 reasons.
Okay.
First of all, we were going to be on the road all the time, and I would not have children and leave them. I would have to, I just couldn't do that. Or even drag them around on the road. I
Right.
wouldn't do that either.
Right.
And the other thing was that there is my family has a few little things in its background, but Daryl's family has a lot of mental issues going back in his family. And I was able to see some of that, from
Sure.
getting to know. And I thought, the chances of us producing a child who has some of those is not a good thing.
Right.
And I was 35 when we got married. That's pretty
Okay.
old, to be starting a family.
True.
So that's why we didn't do it. And he didn't care. He
Yeah.
didn't want kids.
Right. That was probably a relief.
Well, I'm the oldest of four sisters, so I've kind of, mothered a little bit being the oldest of my sisters, and I think maybe that got it out of my system. I don't know.
Right. And it is one of your nieces that helped you write the memoir.
Yes, it's my sister Jane's youngest daughter. She is the loveliest writer, and she can do the things that I'm not good at. I mean, I can write and say, this is what happened when we were at the White House, when we were doing the Pink Floyd. This is what happened. But she's the one who can sit down. I would send the story to her when we were putting this book together. It took us 2 years because we lived, she lived in Florida and I lived in Arizona most of the time. And then she would go over it and she would, with her words, be able to make the listener come right into the scene. Like she could have the listener smelling the magnolias in Alabama where we grew up, I wasn't that good at that, but then she'd send it back to me, and then I would read it out loud to make sure that it did, was exactly right for me. And if it wasn't, I'd text her or I'd call her and I'd say, look, I wouldn't say that word, I wouldn't put it that way. And then, so it came out exactly as I wanted it,
That's
and as
beautiful.
she wanted it.
That's beautiful.
She was wonderful. Yes,
Now,
she was wonderful.
although I will have to say, I think you write better songs than she does.
Well, she's not a songwriter.
I'm giving you a little
That's not her
kudos there.
thing.
Giving
She
you a
is
little.
an artist, though. She's a lovely artist, and
That's
we're thinking
beautiful.
about eventually. We have a whole bunch of things in line, but eventually doing a children's book that she would illustrate,
Oh,
and I would write some
beautiful.
music for kids, to go along with it. So
That-
there's some other things we're thinking of.
And that segues into my next question. What what's next? I mean, what do you love to do? What do you see yourself doing more of? I know
Well, I'll
that
tell
you
you-
have an entire fan base who would love to see sort of, the nostalgia, the pictures,
I
the
know.
music, and all of that.
Yeah. Daryl and I always talked about this when we were having all of our hits. And one of the things we both agreed on, although, I feel kind of bad about it because a lot of people love to go see old musicians who've been out of the public eye for a long time perform just because that takes them back to some memories. But I never wanted to be a nostalgia band. I knew we had our place. Our place was the 70s and early 80s, and we were lucky. We had a whole bunch of hit records, 2 number ones, one that I wrote, Do That to Me One More Time, and a whole bunch of others. I wrote 2 of our million-selling singles and a ton of the ones on our albums. I was proud of what we did. But when it was done, I thought, okay, that was our time. We had our time. Now I'm going to go on and sing with symphonies and big bands. I'm going to do what my dad raised me on, the music of the Great American Songbook, and I did that for a while. And then I said, okay, now I want to do a Broadway show. So I ended up doing the lead in Victor Victoria on the first national tour.
I read that.
Yeah, so, I just said, okay, that was our spot, and that's fine. But I will tell you one thing. When Caroline and I were in New York and L.A. In April doing television and so forth, I was absolutely amazed at the reception we got from people in person.
Yes.
It was very, very, very moving to me and very awe-inspiring, and I think it was all heartfelt from the people that I did see.
Absolutely. I would have loved to have you in the studio, and we were trying to get the Skype, but you'll just have to agree when you buy me dinner after you meet the guy that you're going to come to the studio live with me here, because I just know you're just absolutely stunning.
Well, I just might get out there someday.
Good.
You never know.
I
I've
would love
already
that.
done it once this year.
Good.
Whether I
And-
do it again for a while remains to be seen.
I see a show with you and Dawn in the same studio with me. That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be
She's such a
fun.
hoot.
Yes.
She's about half my height. She's this tiny little thing,
She
and I had
is.
no idea how tiny she was.
Yep. But she's a powerhouse.
She is.
She's
There's
a
no
positive
question.
powerhouse, that one. So, and now I have 2, and they're both except septuagenarians. So I've got my
Yes.
2 role models right here. So
That's
how do
absolutely
how
right.
do my listeners find your book, and how do they find you and sort of stay in
Okay.
touch with you?
All right, here's the best way and the easiest way.
All right.
You can go to my Facebook page,
Okay.
which is The Real Toni Tennille. It has to be that because there's already a Toni Tennille and it isn't me.
Right.
So
Isn't it amazing
somebody
how
grabbed
people
it.
do that? I know. Somebody grabbed
know.
Dr. Marissa, and I'm like, what? Why would you want a name that's not yours?
Well, anyway,
They want to sell it
and
back.
If people write to me on that, which
Mm-hmm.
they do all the time now, and I want them to know I write back myself. Nobody writes for me. So if you write to me and you get a reply from me, it's me writing it at my own laptop here in my house.
Beautiful.
You can also go to Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Toni Tennille, and I have a page, a regular website, ToniTennille.net. And there's 2 N's and 2 L's in Tennille.
I learned that.
And then also, I just want to throw this in because it made me really happy.
Yes.
I narrated the audiobook myself. And Audiophile magazine, which reviews all of the audiobooks that come out, which I love to listen to, gave me an award for an outstanding performance for reading that my memoir. So if anybody's going on a long trip and they just like to listen to it, they can hear me tell the story. You can also go to Barnes and Noble. I know they carry it. You can go to Amazon.com, which is where I go most of the time to get my stuff. And you can get it in Audible version, or you can get it downloaded to your Kindle, or you can get the hardcover.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I forgot to tell Harlan, ask for an Asian Oprah giveaway of 1 free copy of a book. So I'll just, if I don't get it free from you, I'll buy it and then give it away to my listeners.
Well, you just tell Harlan. I know he has one, and he'll be happy to send. Tell him I said so. Okay?
I will tell him that. So if you'd like a free copy of Toni Tennille, a memoir, is there another subtitle with that? I don't have a copy in front of me.
It's just called Toni Tennille, a memoir. We wanted to keep it simple and nothing fancy.
Great. And if you go to, let's do Facebook. If you give her a like and then you come to Dr. Marissa, give me a like and message me and say, I'd like the memoir. I'll get that to you. First one to do it wins the book. And that's an Asian Oprah giveaway. And also, I wanted to say something, and I've just lost it. It's that 1 hour story I told you about. But yes, I just saw the most amazing musical at the Pantages, and when you were talking, it was beautiful. Carole King's music. And you could totally do a musical. So when you were, I'm not kidding. I see that with the guy. Maybe he's the financer, but I totally see you making the musical.
Carole King, when Daryl and I were working in clubs in 72, 73, 74, I sang so many of Carole King's songs because she had hits, before we ever had a hit.
Right.
And I sang her songs and Carly Simon songs and Elton John songs and Billy Joel and all those people I sang. And then I got to see most of them and know most of them. It was just really a wonderful thing.
That is. They say the same things about you. And so I do see, because her format is totally doable. Have you seen the musical yet?
No, I haven't, because it's still in New York, isn't it? It hasn't gone on the road.
It's in it. I don't know if it's on the road, but it was in L.A. It just had opening night. I was fortunate to go on Friday. It was opening night.
She's an amazing woman.
She's
is,
amazing. As are you, and your music would follow that format of just the whole story is fascinating. And we only got to part to it, but you can get the rest of the story straight from the author's mouth, both in audiobook and book, Amazon.com, Toni Tennille, a memoir. Last big question. So I know you live by no regrets. I also live by that theme, no regrets. So it's not a regret question, but for the listeners, especially the ones that write you, if they find themselves in a situation, in a relationship where there is no love, there is no intimacy, What's your advice to them?
Well, don't take as long as I did. No, because it was supposed to be the length it
Yes.
was. I had to take that
Yes.
long.
Yes.
The thing you have to say is, why am I still in this relationship? You have to ask yourself that. And then the second thing you have to say is, what can I do to get myself out of the relationship? What support do I need to help me do that? And then you have to say, do I deserve happiness in this life? And everybody does. And if you say yes, then you just go with your heart.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That is straight from Toni Tennille, absolutely fabulous singer-songwriter who has so many hits we can't even start listing them. But you know her music, you know the pictures of Captain and Tennille. She is the joy side. She is now embarking on the next chapter in her book of romance. I do wish you the best, most suspenseful and exciting page turners for the next chapter. Even though you think it's a PG rated book, I think there's going to be some pretty spectacular pages in there. And I know you're leaving it open because I'm giving you advice that I don't use.
I love it. I think your advice is great.
Oh, good. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Toni Tennille, for coming on Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. Yay. And it's the end of the show when it's time for my balance bar. And that's when I invite you to step up to the bar to find out how you can gain more balance. And the one that's very close right now is this this Thursday, I'm actually teaching in Culver City, Balanced Tai Chi Gong in a Keely Beckwith's meditation class. If you're in the meditation class, and I know I have some listeners from those classes, I'm coming to visit and to teach a little segment on Thursday. If you're not in that area in Culver City and you are in Southern California, you can go to Huntington Beach on July the 9th. I will be holding a rare public workshop, Balance Retreat. If you have any issues with that critical voice in your mind that says you shouldn't do this, you should do that, and you're tired of listening to it and being driven crazy, I'm going to be giving some balance tool instruction, including Balanced Tai Chi Gong, the moving meditation that promotes inner peace, one breath at a time. And that's July 9th. Please go to my website, the number 4balance.org, and pre-register. It's only $88 before you get to the door, $108 after the door. And it includes the DVD personalized as well as a healthy lunch. So I hope to see you then. July the 9th. Space is limited, so please register today. As well, I am, let's see, what else? Oh, yes. I am going to start, unbelievable, the 6th year running of the 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa. July 1st, 2016. I started actually July 1st, 2011, bringing this good life habit online for a racket about hope and happiness. So 21 days in a row, not complaining. If you're able to do it, then you let me know, and I give you a free pack of my motivational cards, 52-card pick-me-up, Stacking the Deck for Life Balance with Dr. Marissa. Also, I went to some expense last year because you asked me for it, so get them. They're 99-cent apps that are just delightful. They have, my daughter put great graphics in it, and if you press buttons, if you complain, there's a baby crying, and if you don't complain for the day, you get a cheer, just like this cheer that you hear on the air. So please do get that app. If you go Google Play, it's 21 Day Fast. If you go to Apple Store, it's called just put Dr. Marissa Pay and it will come up. So that's the 21-day fast from complaining. And next week, I am delighted to have a fellow first soprano diva from the Agape International Choir on deck for Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. And her name is Sheila Nichols. She has been on The Tonight Show. She has records under her belt. She's got a new one coming out. She's really absolutely a very talented singer-songwriter. So I've 2 in a row. And so you'll want to tune in next week for sure for another fabulous episode of Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. And remember, it is all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Don't take away the part of me that wants to stay. It's all I want to hear my life and sing along. For without it, there's no laughter, no tears, lonely days after, no memories for the way things used to be. Many a friend has stopped along the